legislature, bicameral legislature, that's one house or two houses legislature. Okay, you have all these different plans floating around, and then you develop these factions. You have the Federalists, which wanted a strong federal government, and you had the Anti-Federalists, which wanted strong state governments. And they're clashing, and they're James Madison, who's the father of the Constitution, he's putting out the Federalist Papers. You have the Anti-Federalists countering those. But what they all agreed on was that the states should have the right, the people in the states should have the right to keep and bear arms. That was fundamental belief. Everybody believed that. All the founding fathers believed. And I'll show you some quotes here in a second of what they believed. Now, what we get from that is we get, from the Virginia Plan and the Jersey Plan, a blending called the Great Compromise or the Connecticut Compromise, where we come up with all sorts of compromises, the Three-Fifths Clause, the Slave Trade Commerce Clause, and we get the Bill of Rights. Now, what most people don't understand is that the Bill of Rights only protected you from things that the federal government can do to you. Everybody get that? The Bill of Rights only protected you from what the federal government can do to you. The states, they had their own constitutions in a way, and they could kind of make their own laws, and that's what everybody kind of liked. So, let's take a look at our amendment a little closer here. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That pesky comma. If you have kids or are going to have kids and you want them to learn English grammar correctly, have them talk and use punctuation. However, comma, I would like to inform you that you are totally mistaken, Mr. Biddle, exclamation mark. You will learn grammar and punctuation. I'm married to an English teacher, so I don't talk such because I'm afraid she's going to shoot me down on my grammar. Okay, well, let's take a look. This comma, what's a comma do? Separates two thoughts, doesn't it? A semicolon, like, really separates it. Okay, like a longer colon. Okay. And there's probably other things that separate thoughts. I don't know. Periods. But the comma, we have two distinct thoughts here. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, separate thought now. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, the founding fathers were smart guys. They were Renaissance men. They knew all kinds of different languages. They were up on art and literature, and these guys were, we can't compare today to these guys. If they were alive today, they would just probably walk away from us because they would be so mad at what we've become. But this pesky comma kind of separate, this is where everything gets messed up now. Because you have two interpretations of the Second Amendment. You have the collective rights argument, which means generally it's the anti-gun rights side. Oh, well, you can have a gun if you're in the Army, or you're in the National Guard, or you're the government, or you're a police department. That's the collective rights side. Or it's the individual rights. So that's the first part of it, the well-regulated militia. Now, the bottom part is the individual rights side. This is, I think, what most of us believe in here, is that the pro-gun rights side, the individual rights, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. What does it mean to infringe? Stepped on, yes sir, regulate. Take rights away. The Second Amendment, I mean, it says what it says. You can interpret it all kinds of different ways, but, I mean, you have to look at who were the people. Who were the people? I was doing some research. This is my little Second Amendment Bible. It's highlighted everywhere in here. I don't go anywhere without this thing, okay? Your pocket constitution is a great thing to have, but here's the pocket constitution to the Second Amendment. And whenever my kids do Second Amendment PowerPoints in class, I'm like, whoever the Second Amendment group is, I throw this over to them. I say, here, this will help you. And they're like, who put all this writing in here? I'm like, I do. And they're like, oh, okay. I said, you're lucky you got the Second Amendment. All right, so who were the people? The people generally were any, basically male, 17-year-old to about 47, 48 person during this period of time. And in some states, they were required by law to have a firearm and a certain amount of powder and a certain amount of shot to take with them. The militia were the people that, the Minutemen, they were ready at a moment's notice. They would defend the town from an Indian attack, or even the British eventually. Okay, but that's what the people were. The people, the right of the people. Now, if you look at the other amendments, the anti-gunners don't want you to. The people are kind of different in the Second Amendment. as opposed to the people in the First Amendment or the people in the Fourth Amendment, or you understand what I'm saying? They want the Second Amendment people to be different. Okay. Oh no, it doesn't mean the people. It means the Army or the National Guard. Now, was there a National Guard at this period of time? No. No, the militia. The militia was basically your town's little National Guard, and they were the people, okay, the citizen. Now, the militia term gets a bad rap these days because if you go into Michigan, you have the Michigan militia. These crazies that run around the woods stirring up trouble, and the militia gets a bad name. But militia, back in the old days, that was a good thing. But sometimes the militia would kind of run away from the battles. Okay, and they were dependable sometimes. But we feared standing armies back during this period of time because the king had his standing army, and when the king sent the standing army against Lexington and Concord, the orders from General Gage were to do what? Those of you who remember your American history, what did General? Yes, sir.
To collect the guns.
And what else? Gunpowder.
Musket balls.
Musket balls, even flour for some reason. I guess he didn't want us to eat, to starve us out. Okay, but that's what General Gage did. And here's another debunking of history. We teach little kids this stuff because they're not old enough to understand the real stuff yet. Paul Revere did not go down the road saying, the British are coming, the British are coming. Everybody was British back then. It could have been two old ladies walking down the road. He would have been right. The British are coming. He said the redcoats are coming, or the regulars are coming, the regular troops. And they were marching at a very fast pace to get to the towns before people woke up so they could secure the arms and ammunition from the people because they were fearing a revolution from the people. And the easiest way to subjugate or put down a population is to take their weapons away from them. And that's what the British wanted to do. Now, unfortunately, this completely backfired on the British because they get there, they're slow. The militia is standing there waiting, and the shot heard around the world. We don't know who fired the first shot. I'm pretty sure it was a militiaman just to get things started. Let's shoot those British guys. Now, chances are, if you have a rifle back then, smooth bore, if you shot at that wall, you'd be lucky to hit what you're aiming at back then. Okay. But shots are fired. There's a big problem. Everything's happening. They defend the bridge, and now the British have to beat feet back to Boston. It's about a 13-mile walk, I believe. Well, everybody that has a gun comes out and starts hiding behind trees and walls and starts taking shots at the British on their way back to Boston. Okay, here are American colonists taking shots at the King's soldiers. Okay, we have crossed the Rubicon of normal behavior here. We are taking shots at the King's troops. That's a big deal. Okay, so it was a very big deal. But do you understand the two different interpretations of the Second Amendment? Because this is where the debate is today between people like us that think, oh, it's an individual right. And when we get to the court cases here soon, it's kind of scary how close the margin is on the votes these past two Supreme Court decisions on gun rights were. Okay, so the individual rights belief that we the people have the right to keep and bear arms, or the collective rights issue where or what the government likes to give guns to, the police, the army, they have the right to have a firearm, and you don't. Everybody sees the distinction between the two different views. Great. All right. Now, this is one of my favorite cartoonists, Ken Tuma. He does great conservative cartoons. If you take a look at the Second Amendment here, it's kind of been changed a little bit. A well-regulated population being necessary to the security of a police state, the right of the government to register and ban arms shall not be infringed. That is the worst-case scenario we could ever have for our Second Amendment, other than it being completely taken away from us. All right, here's what the Founding Fathers said. I guarantee you they're highlighted in your book of mine. Okay? All right, George Washington, a free people ought to be armed. A free people ought to be armed. No man should scruple or hesitate a moment to use arms in defense. Now look at James Madison, the father of our Constitution. The advantage of being armed is an advantage the Americans possess over the people of almost every other nation. In the several kingdoms of Europe, the governments are afraid to trust the people with arms. Now Thomas Jefferson also has a great quote. He says, when the people fear the government, there is tyranny. But when the government fears the people, there is liberty. That's a great quote. Great quote. And it's so true. If the government takes every right away you have no right. You're scared to death of the government.
weren't his ideas. He kind of plagiarized, but if you go to page back then, it's called Imitations of Responsibility. He took a lot of different ideas from different people, put them into the Declaration of